Welcome to Play by Players, an MLSPA podcast. This show is brought to you by the players and is all about the players, both past and present, who have plied their trade in MLS. You'll hear about each player's journey into the game, their careers and life after the game, on the field and off. It's all on the table. Now here's your host, former MLS player, Bobby Boswell.
Welcome to another episode of Play by Players, brought to you by the MLS Players Association. Today's guest is someone MLS fans will know well, but not as well as I do. He is someone I battled against on the field. He's also someone that I had the pleasure of playing alongside for many years. He has played over 300 professional games in Major League Soccer, the CONCACAF Champions League, the U.S. Open Cup, even a game in the Canadian Championship. He has represented the U.S. Youth National Team as well as the U.S. Men's Full National Team. He has won 2 Supporter Shields, 2 MLS Cups. He's been an All Star twice with 2 different teams. He was the MLS Rookie of the Year. Please welcome to the podcast, my friend, Sean Franklin.
What's going on, Bobby? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, how's everything going for you, man? You look great.
Trying to, man. 38 now, so I'm getting up there. Not as old as you, but, you know.
Yeah. This is about you, not about me. Well, with all that great stuff I just said, there are 2 things that are going to hold you back a little. One of those, in researching for this, you've never gotten a red card ever?
Never. I've never got an official red card. I think in a preseason game I did. So it's not on record, but in a preseason game, I think it was my second year. I actually had an own goal in that game as well. So I had an own goal and then I had a double yellow. So that's the only red card I've had professionally, but on record, 0 red cards.
Yeah, well, that's just shocking to me because I've seen you kick the crap out of some guys over the years. And, and the second thing I mentioned was that you are a Raiders fan. We don't have to go too far into that, but just temper, I'm trying to temper the expectations of the listeners out there. So let's all joking aside, let's go back to where it all started. California, you weren't obnoxious like some of the other guys I played with, but you definitely have a sense of pride of where you're from. You moved back there when you retired. Talk to me, what was so special about growing up in the Golden State?
Yeah, so I grew up in Palma, California, probably about an hour, 15 minutes north of Los Angeles, in a desert, small little valley. When I moved there wasn't really much. They were just starting to build the mall out there. So, that was like the new thing when it came. But I moved there when I was 9 and I grew up there till was all the way through high school. And I started playing ASO at 9 years old, and that's when I really started to fall in love with the game. I was playing soccer and basketball at the same time. My mom was like, "You got to pick one," because it was basketball in the morning, and then she was driving me down for tournaments, and she was like, "This is too much. You got to stick to one." And ended up picking soccer, which I think the right choice. So that's where my love grew for the game was after a couple of years at AY. So.
Well, I know you mentioned your mom. Anyone that's been your teammate has met her many times. We all loved your mom, seeing her around and all that. You had a large family growing up. You had a bunch of siblings. I think your dad played college football, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
How did you even get started in it? Was it just kind of one of those, like you played every sport and you just happened to stick with soccer and basketball? Or, did you have any family members that played it? Or, you kind of were very talented. I'm curious where that came from.
Yeah, so no one in my family was a soccer player. I was the first and only one. And like I said, I grew up playing basketball. I did track when I was in middle school. And I think I did like 1 year of like T-ball or something like that. So yeah, I was the typical kid that did every single sport at a young age. And it was just something about soccer that stuck with me. And when I moved to Palmdale, some of my closest friends at the time, they all played soccer. And my mom, she could see that I was really into it. And she had bought this random, VHS, if anyone remembers those. It was a World Cup '94 video, and it was highlights of all the games. and she got it for me for Christmas one year, and I would just watch it religiously. And I remember doing all the celebrations, all the goal celebrations from all the African teams, and then seeing Brazil and everyone. And I used to watch that game like before high school games. I just, from that video on, it just stuck with me.
As far as club soccer goes, you talked about AYSO. I thought I saw somewhere you played for the Palmdale Falcons, or what I know that the academies
Palmdale
weren't around.
Heat.
The Palmdale Heat, sorry.
AV Heat, yeah.
Desert
AV
makes
Heat.
sense. But California always had these pockets of great players. I know guys that didn't play in academies, even when academies existed, and they're very good professionals now. What was your youth experience like without the academy? How did you kind of get on people's radar?
Yeah, I think now I think it's great that they have the academies, and there's definitely way more exposure and opportunities for kids now, which is great, because you can just see how much the sport has grown. But back then it was just kind of word of mouth. There was a lot of talent that came out of AV, but for us, it was a trek to get out there. There's coaches or scouts that they might not want to drive an hour all the way to the desert, to see some kids play. And I think that for me, I wasn't on anyone's radar, but I played with and against a lot of players that were better with me. And I think because of them, I think that's maybe how I got my exposure was through them.
Yeah, then you went to, I know you played in high school, and I've been very vocal on this podcast that I think it's crazy that kids don't play high school soccer nowadays, because that was probably the most fun I had playing the sport. You went to, is it Highland High School?
Highland High School, yeah.
The Bulldogs, even though you never got a red card, we're going to let you get away with being a Bulldog here. And I always joke around. I love looking up schools and seeing the mascots and who went there. And in your case, it's funny, like when you look up guys on the Northeast, right, where they went to high school, it's all these like political figures and academics. And I've noticed, like, whenever I look up anyone that went to high school in California, all the notable people are musicians and athletes. And in your case, your school, it was literally just all athletes, and it was like all different sports. You were on there, but it looked like a pretty good athletic school in terms of competition. Is that kind of where you really started to shine and show well when you got to high school?
Yeah, high school, like you said, high school soccer was probably some of the best times and memories I had playing. Our rival was Courtsville High School, and they were supposedly the better team. And once high school season started, you play club, and then high school season starts, and half of our club team was at Courtsville and half our club team was on Highland. So just a rivalry between, our friends, and just, talking mess and playing. Those games are always fun, right? And Courtsville had players that were getting looked at. Like a buddy of mine, he was on the youth national team, went to UCLA. He was top scorer or whatever in SoCal. So they had all the talent. They had everyone looking at them. And, I think that's what drove me. Like, I wanted to be great. I wanted to always beat them because they were supposedly the better school. But like I said earlier, I think, from their exposure, maybe that's where I also, might have been seen by someone who was like, hey, who is this kid?
Did you play defense then, or were you in the midfield or playing up front then?
I was in the midfield, center mid.
Yeah, there you go. Two-way player. I think you were the Golden League MVP. I think y'all won the Golden League championship. You were captain, I know, your senior year. As far as, a fascinating part of your story is I saw that is it true you didn't get any college scholarship offers, or is it you didn't get any to like UCLA and an ACC school?
No, I wasn't offered any, scholarships, or I wasn't super recruited highly. I remember my club coach. So I left what was it, U17s. I finished with AV Heat, left and played for West Valley Samba, which is now Real SoCal. And my coach at the time was the assistant coach at Cal State Northridge. And I remember talking to him like, like, I'm not sure if, college soccer is for me. I was like, I'm not being recruited. Like, I'm not sure what I want to do. And he was like, well, you want to talk to, he's like, okay, well, let me talk to Terry. Terry Davila is the head coach at CSUN. He was like, maybe I can have him come out, check out a high school game and, go from there. And at that time, I didn't realize my club coach, he was trying to push me to other schools like UNLV. I think maybe even like maybe USF. I can't remember, but yeah, he was trying to push me to schools, and I was just like, look, let's just have Terry come out. Like, it is what it is. And he came out to one of my high school games, and next thing you know, I'm taking a visit on the CSUN campus, which I knew well because my sister was going there at the time. Both my parents graduated from Northridge, and my grandma lives in Northridge, so I basically knew the campus, but I still went and did the visit and everything. And, and the rest is history. I decided to go to CSUN. So
yeah,
good decision to go to college.
So you end up going there. They're the Matadors.
The Matadors.
Maddie the Matador. What a terrible name, being Maddie, but the Matadors are cool. When you knew the coach, obviously the assistant coach from playing with him, what was your expectation going into college? I mean, you don't strike me as like the nervous type. Like, I played with you, right? And like, you never seemed nervous, but I also know you were, you weren't as out there as some of the other guys like myself and some of the other guys in the locker room. Like, what was your thought process going into college?
Yeah, I think for me, I lucked out because we, our club team, we would scrimmage against the CSUN team. So prior to going into, summer camp with them, I knew, most of the team. I had a friend that I played with against in Court Hill. He was a goalie at CSUN, so I knew him really well. So, and he, hooked me up with his roommates, stuff like that. So it was just, for me, it was just an easy kind of transition. I wasn't nervous. I had no expectations of, being a starter or anything like that. I was just, coming in, excited to play, and I ended up redshirting my freshman year, which was frustrating because, you go from, all these years of starting on club and playing a lot of minutes to all of a sudden you're to a new team, and now you're just, essentially just a practice player. But I needed that time to grow. I thought I wasn't at the level where I think the coach wanted me to be at, and I just took that year to learn and get better.
Yeah, and you talked about the red shirt. You go into your freshman year and you start playing pretty much right away, and that was kind of barring injury, that was like the whole story of your college career. You won a ton of, you were awarded, different various, not all American, but things like all region, all conference, things like that. At what point in your college career did you start representing the youth national team?
My sophomore year, 2005, was when I got my first call up to the U20s.
And how'd that come about? I mean, they just saw you playing that year, and did you know those guys already, or was it just kind of out of the blue?
No, it was just kind of out of the blue. I remember getting, I think it was a phone call or email from Terry about, he was like, I got a phone call from Ziggy Schmidt, and he wants to bring you into a camp. And I said, all right. I said, cool. And then going to camp, I'm running the guys like, Benny Fehlhaber and who else was like Charlie Davies. Charlie Davies was at that camp. Who else was there? These
are like guys that are at big schools or are already going pro.
Big schools, yeah. Charlie was at Boston. I mean, Sasha was there. He's at Seton Hall. So these are guys they're all at big name schools. And then you got me on the roster, Cal State Northridge.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, that's really not, I give Ziggy a lot of credit. I'm sure that, he'd seen you before. He loves California and he loved his California guys. So that was cool. I think it's great that guys, get an opportunity. I know, is it at this point where you start seeing, okay, not only am I here, but I can compete with these guys, and you start, saying, you know what, maybe professional soccer is on my radar now?
Yeah, I remember after a couple of camps, and some of the guys were already signed to MLS teams, and I was like, I felt like I did all right, and I was like, you know what, I can compete at this level. I was like, I think this is what I want to be. I want to push to be professional. And I remember even like after the camps and coming back and playing with CSUN, I was a different player. I was playing faster. I was playing 1 touch, 2 touch here and there, and they were like, who are you? And I was like, sorry. I was like, I just been used to playing like,
I'm not sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. But yeah, that's when I realized that I could hang at that level was when I think I can, do this professionally.
All right. Well, I have to ask, and your senior year, you got you won some awards, but you were injured you came into the season with a broken arm. Did you break your arm doing something cool?
No, I wish I did. I broke it in a summer league team. It might have been a playoff game. It was like a PDL league.
San Fernando Valley Quakes.
San Fernando Valley Quakes, baby.
That thing looked like it was created just for your college career. That was it. Like it was there for a couple of years. Ton of MLS guys, a lot of names I knew on the guys that were on it. But anyway, so like most guys, you got some PDL experience. Sounds like not the kind you really wanted though, and you broke your arm, and that really kind of put you back.
Yeah, I went out with a header, collided with a guy. I went to brace myself, and I landed on my wrist, dislocated my wrist. Excuse me, fractured a few things, and I had a cast up to my shoulder, like this, pretty much, for what was it, about 8 weeks. For 8 weeks, and then I had a regular arm cast for a month. So and that happened in August. So I think I only played the last like 6 games of the season. I remember the coach is like, look, he's like, I'm going to play you wherever. He's like, I might play you center back, right back, wherever. Just enjoy your last, few games of the senior. So I was like, all right. But to be fair, I was really scared that it might hurt, my chances of, getting drafted.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you did well enough, and you had done well enough before that they knew who you were because you get invited to the combine. Obviously you did well there. Talk to us a little bit about what are your expectations going into the super draft. I think a lot of guys, they seem to have no idea where they're going to be in that. In your case, I mean, you're taken 4th overall, which is incredible. But what were your expectations going into it?
Yeah, it was kind of the whole combine experience was kind of a crazy week. I was in camp in Bradenton, and I got the invite for the combine. It was me and a few other guys that were in camp. It was me, Chance Myers. Who else was in that camp? That US camp or whatever. There's a few other guys that were in camp. We all went to they let us leave camp and go to the combine for like a day. So we go there, we do the physical stuff. We were only allowed to play like one of the scrimmages. We play the scrimmages. We go back to camp, and then they call us like a couple of days later to go to the draft. So I mean, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to the draft. I was like, all right, I don't know what to expect. I'm like, okay, I'm just hoping I get picked at some point. And then you start looking at, who's who. And I was like, Galaxy number 4, probably not going to happen. Just, who knows what's going to happen. And then they called my name, and I was just like shocked. And the whole time, I guess, like my agent knows, but he doesn't tell me anything. So
Yeah, thanks, agent.
yeah,
Had to be really cool for your family, though. I mean, you could have ended up really anywhere, and to end up kind of in the hometown team, and your family's like what, an hour away from coming to watch you play.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
they
had to
were,
be.
yeah, it's very, very fortunate to be able to stay local, and I mean, be able to have friends and family at every single Galaxy home game.
Well, I will say this, most people that think of the Galaxy, like myself, they think about how they had some of the best teams in MLS history. Maybe not lately, but we'll address that later in the podcast. But that first year for you was a great year for you individually, but for the team itself, did you go? I think you had three coaches that year. Was it your first year? You had three.
Three, yeah, it was three coaches. Well, yeah, because we had Rude, and then like Kobe came in for like a couple of games, like an interim coach, and then Bruce came in towards the end.
Rude. I don't know how Rude Hewlett. Is that how I say it?
Yeah, Rude, Gullit.
Hewlett, and then
Yeah,
you're
it's Dutch.
talking about Kobe Jones, soccer, Galaxy legend, and then Bruce. Speaking of royalty, Bruce Arena ends up being the coach. What were your memories from that first year? I mean, you come in and you play. You end up becoming the rookie of the year. You beat out Jeff Cameron, who was a teammate of mine. You play a lot of center back that first year. Just what do you, when you look back, what do you remember about that first year?
Yeah, it was a lot with the coaching changes, with how we were last in the West, to all the crazy stuff that comes along with having David Beckham on your team, and I mean it was just a lot. But for me, I just remember what was it? It was the first game, and we were in Colorado, and I made the roster, but I didn't start. And I think we got killed that game like 4-0 or 4-1. And I remember Abel Xavier got a red card that game. And the next day we had a reserve league game. It was like at 9 a.m. It was like snow on the field. They're like plowing. I'm like, dude, there's no way like we're gonna play this game. Like I'm over it. Like, let's just fly home. We got killed yesterday. Like, no one wants to play this game. It's freezing cold out. And then I remember the coach says, "Hey, you're gonna play center back." I'm like, all right, cool, like whatever, right? I guess I'll play center back. We played center back, balled, I guess. And the next weekend, we have our home game against San Jose, and I start as a center back. And from the first game that I started center back, I pretty much played center back that whole season. So it was different for me to go from playing right back to center back. But man, it was like you said, personally, it was a great year. But as a team, it was just rough. It was rough games.
Well, Bruce takes over, I think, in August, September of that year. And then the off season is just a complete overhaul. I think there were like everyone but a handful of guys, like 5 of you stay. Everyone else is out. I went and looked at the roster from that year. And I know a lot of those names because I was around then, and like there was a reason y'all finished where y'all finished that year. And then the next year I look at that roster and I'm like, oh, there's a reason they did.
Guys.
there's a reason they did really well, in the years to come. So, talk about that transition. When you go from a team that doesn't do that well to now you've got a whole new group, and you go on to, eventually y'all start, you win Supporter Shield, you make a couple MLS Cup finals or get close to it where you probably should have won, but you don't. Talk about that transition and what made those teams, help turn the tide a little bit.
Yeah, I think when Bruce came in, and just the title that he brings and the accolades he brings, it was the expectation of what he wanted, our club to be. And what he wanted from his players. And I think everyone bought into it. And the core group that we had, from I would say from 09 to about 13, a couple of changes here and there. We were like a family. We were super close, and like I said, we demanded the best from everyone. It didn't matter if you were a starter, a sub, or you didn't dress. Everyone bought into their role. I think that's what made our teams over those years successful.
And for you personally, during that time, you also start getting called in to, you had been called in. We kind of skipped over the U23s where you're traveling around the world a little, but you get called into, you start getting called into U.S. men's full national team camps. Talk a little bit about you're a guy, and I had the same experience. There are a handful of guys that get to go into a lot of camps, but they don't necessarily get a lot of caps. But it's still a great experience in that you're playing with the best of the best. Your game's improving. You're still around the environment. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, my first camp was it was back in Colorado. It was I think it was a qualifying match against, I want to say Honduras. Guatemala. Yeah. Guatemala. Didn't dress. But just the experience of, playing with those guys and, going from, representing the Galaxy to now representing your country. It's just a different level. And I think after that camp, I got called into the January camp. And then, but I left camp early because I got injured. And then I didn't get called into another camp until January 2011. So I missed about a year. Yeah. What's that?
You end up getting a cap against Chile, which is awesome. Let's go back to the Galaxy. So we talked about y'all had a year where y'all got to the finals. You didn't win it the next year. Probably should have won. I think you get eliminated in the semis. But then you get your revenge. And, I played against you. I joked before this podcast started, so I got Robbie Keane's jersey here. You guys go back to back, and you beat us 2 years in a row, the Houston team, but y'all kind of ran through everyone. And, it was a pretty impressive group of guys that you had. What kind of turned the corner in terms of being close to getting it done?
Yeah. So, in 09, we lost in penalties to Salt Lake. And then 2010, we lost at home in the Western Conference Finals to Dallas 3-0. And I just remember after that game, Bruce had no words. We had no words. It was even like my parents were like, my mom was like, I don't know what I just watched. Like everyone was like shocked, like looked like it was just a completely different team. I think just there was all this expectations like, oh, we're going to go to the finals and all this talk. And then we basically blow it. And then 2011 was just a year that, we kind of ran through, I try to say this as humble as I can. We kind of ran through the league. I think teams feared us. They hated coming to LA. They hated when we went to their place. We were just playing with a lot of confidence. And yeah, that year was, I think we had, we didn't lose at home that whole season in all competitions. I think we had 18 shutouts on the year. It was just a special year, a special group. I know people and fans still talk about the 2011, season and team that we had. And it was special. And then to do it again in 2012 was amazing. It was some of the best 2 years of my life. So it was just a great time to be a footballer in Los Angeles. You can say that.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, that 2011, that was the last year that the MLS Cup final was predetermined, and it was in LA at the Galaxy's home field. So it was kind of like this was meant to be type thing. And then the next year, it was whoever was the highest seed, and y'all were the highest seed. So y'all hosted that as well, which is, that's an interesting piece of, I guess, of history. You mentioned it a little earlier. You talked about coming into the league and being on a team with, I always joke around and say people that never played with him say Beckham, but like, maybe it's just because you're so cool, but you would always just be like, oh, you mean David?
David.
Yeah. And it's a great flex. It's a great flex, but it's true. You can do it. I just don't think that there's another celebrity, soccer especially, but to really compare him to, I know Messi and Ronaldo, if they were to come to MLS, that would kind of be otherworldly. But at the time when Beckham came here, that was like the heyday of MLS, in my opinion. It was just the celebrity was so big for so many different reasons. They tried to copycat that with Zlatan and some other people, but it doesn't work the same because of who he is. What was it like being his teammate, through that wild ride?
Yeah, that's the best word for it. Wild. You're in the airport, he's with his bodyguards, and there's people screaming and cameras and media, and it was a lot, but he was super humble, obviously a great player, great guy. He would talk to everyone, older guys, younger guys, just a really, great teammate, and just being able to, talk to him, soccer stuff, like, came to him with questions. He was always, there to answer or help my game. And the only thing that was frustrating was in training, Bruce would have me go out and hit crosses with him.
He was kind of
I'm like, way to just, shoot my confidence down, dude.
Hey, there's so many older guys, and I say older meaning older than me, and you're a little bit younger than me, but we were always saying, man, we wish Instagram was around when we were young, because we could have built our following, and I have to imagine if you had Instagram when you were his teammate, that would have been pretty epic. But we're both happily married now, so we're not gonna
jump down that.
Yeah, we're not gonna dive into that. One thing I didn't mention in that period, because we're about to move on to DC here, but you were named an MLS All Star while you were there. Y'all played a game against Man U. I think for those that don't know, I joked about the Raiders, but you are a huge Arsenal fan as well. And you liked Arsenal, before I'd say, I guess it's always been cool to like Arsenal, but now it's become like kind of reverse trendy where it's the underdog team. But you got to share a field. Y'all played Man U, and the game was in New York, and you got to share the field with Thierry Henry, who I know was an important player for you, as a kid. Talk a little bit about what it was like to, go to an All-Star game and then also be on the team with him.
Yeah, Thierry. He's been my idol for forever. Obviously what he's done speaks for itself, but just being able to share the field with him as opposed to having to battle against him was a good change. And then just being able to talk to him and try not to be like fangirling inside, because obviously he's my idol, but we're at the end of the day we're both just kicking the soccer ball in the field, right? But just over the years of playing against him and little conversations, here and there, during the game, after the game, it was just cool just to, being able to be myself around him. And I remember it was our final, what was it, 2014 or 2015? I forget, whatever his last year was, where was it 2014 we lost to New York, right?
2015.
At home?
We lost to him. I think we lost to him twice. Oh, no, we lost to Montreal.
Lost to Montreal.
Year. But I think it might have been 2014. It was the first year.
2014. Yeah. And I remember after we lost, I remember like pulling this out. I was like, hey man, look, I never told you this over these years. I was like, but you've always been like, my idol, my favorite player. Like I love your game, this and that. And he goes, big man, why didn't you just tell me this before? Like all these years you didn't say anything. And then I was able to finally, like, all these years, have the courage to get his jersey, and we swapped jerseys. So that was, a pretty cool moment for me. And my friends are like, finally, dude, you said something.
You were injured that game, weren't you?
I got injured. No, I missed the
first leg.
The first leg. I missed the first leg.
I just remember you were out and he balled out, and he was angry the whole time. And the game, he was so mad. And after the game, I said, what was
that in New York? Yeah.
I said, what was that about? And he said, oh, I don't like this guy I'm playing against. And you weren't playing. And I remember just being like, and I think whenever you were back, he was like a nice guy again. Like y'all were helping each other up and hanging out. And I was just like, we need to find someone that he gets along with. And it was unbelievable. He killed us when you were gone. And he was so angry, and it hurt us. But anyway, let's, I'm getting off track. We're going to DC before we need to. The only thing I did want to mention was, I feel like the league's kind of changed a little bit in terms of, you were very fortunate to play in Los Angeles, where y'all would play the world powerhouses. I remember you played, I think, you got to play Man U, you played Real Madrid. I know there's a cool photo of you and Ronaldo going at it. I'm sure the kids that you deal with nowadays love that. My favorite instance was the Man City game, the Balotelli, the back heel thing. That was, you were on the field. You were on the field for that, right?
I was on the field for that.
That's the most ridiculous MLS moment, I think, in the history. And for those that don't know, Balotelli was playing with Man City, and I don't know if he thought he was offsides or if he just did not give a crap, but he got through on a breakaway, and he tried to do like a crazy back heel, and it just went out for a goal kick. And his coach just subbed him right, took him off at like 10 minutes into the game. And I remember you were running back, and I always said that was because Sean was defending him really well there. But you played.
He heard my footsteps.
Yeah, that's right. He heard you coming. But those games were huge, and I feel like the league's kind of gotten away from that. And I don't know if that's the league's fault or those other teams don't necessarily want to play those games anymore. But I feel like as a player, you really got up for those, and it actually make you really nervous because you're like, we could really get wiped out here. But how do you feel when you look back? I mean, those are probably the games you look back, other than the victories and the championships, more than any others.
Yeah, those I think those games were great. I think there is a little bit of nerves, but there's also no expectation from us. Obviously, they're supposed to beat us, right? They play in the Premiership, the Premier League, so it's like kind of almost playing with house money here. It's like, okay, we lose, yeah, we're supposed to lose, but if we win, we win, man. But just playing against those players, guys that you watch on Saturday mornings, or you watch during the week of Champions League games, and now they're in your own backyard and you're playing against them. I mean, it was fun as a young player. It was fun for the fans. And like you said, I think they kind of have gone away from that. Maybe, there's just too many games now to have them come out, and, also you got to deal with the travel. So it's a lot. But I got to play against, even though I was injured, we played against, AC Milan and Barcelona, and then Real Madrid. We played, I think, 3 times, twice at the Rose Bowl in front of 97,000 people. And like you said, Man City and Tottenham we played against. So, man, it was just, like I said, it was fun to be, playing in LA and, having those opportunities.
Yeah, no, it was great to watch. And, I know this year the All Stars are playing Arsenal now. So I think, some of those guys will get to continue playing some of those world-class teams, and the fans will get to see that. So that'll be That'll be good. That game's going to be in DC, which is a perfect segue into, you being picked up in the reentry draft. You were picked before me, and then they added me and like 30 other new guys to the team. But talk a little bit about, this is the first time you're really moving away as an adult, away from California. You've been, 1 minute you're with the Galaxy, and next thing you know, you're moving cross country to DC. What was going through your head for that period of time?
Yeah, I think for me, I just came to realize that 2013 it wasn't a great year for me. I wouldn't say it was probably just an okay year. I think I was just comfortable. I was being a consistent starter from 2008, and I was I was at the probably the peak of my career around 10, 11, 12, and like I said, 13 wasn't my my greatest year, and maybe I was a little complacent. And I knew that LA wasn't gonna pick up my option. So then I go into the to the reentry draft, and DC had the first pick. They were I didn't even know, this is how bad it is. I didn't even know that they had only won 3 games that season. I didn't know their record. I didn't follow anything. My agent said, okay, DC wants to pick you up. And I said, okay, let's do it. And then, I think for me, just being able to, get out of LA, because LA is, it's a lot going on out here. I have, friends, family, you have your personal life. And, now I'm on the East Coast. I have no friends out there, no family out there. And, you kind of gotta grow a little bit. You gotta kind of depend on yourself. And, it was almost like a fresh start. Okay, I'm coming to a new team, and just I really got to just work for it.
You're not implying that DC isn't as luxurious and nice as LA, are you?
No, not at all.
Well, so for those that don't know, there were, I'm not making that up. I think we probably had like 20 new guys into that. Yeah. And you and I were a part of that. We had Jeff Park, Eddie Johnson, Steve Birnbaum was a rookie. There were just so many. Fabi came in. I think not a lot of those guys hung around. Pontius was one of them, Perry Kitchen, but I think Davey Arnaud was a new face.
That's right.
He was very important. And so it's kind of funny, like every guy that was on that roster that came in, a lot of people will joke around about that 3-win season, and everyone's like really quick to be like, no, I was there after that one. But we had a lot of success. We won the East. It was just a very exciting time. And for you talked about being complacent. It had to feel good going into a team that was worst, and it really was a worst to first, transition for us. That had to feel good. And you were also named an All Star, I think, at this one here, and played Bayern Munich. You didn't mention Bayern Munich, by the way. They're a pretty big team that you played in your career. But you get named an All Star, and you're a part of that leadership group that turned it around. What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, I think when I say that coming to DC is kind of was like a fresh start. I think it was maybe a fresh start for all of us. For you that came in, Davey, Park, we all came in, and we were all going to be fighting to be starters and to kind of right that ship. So I think that's why we were successful that year, because it was a new team, fresh start, forget about what happened, and we just moved forward. And then, like you said, I was named to the All Star team. You as well, and Bill Hamid, and playing against Bayern Munich. They just had a bunch of guys from that team that just got back from winning the World Cup from Germany. So it was it was an exciting game. It was one of my funnest All Star games to be a part of. Well, definitely better than the Man U game, losing 4-0 and getting chopped up by by Park. So
Well, I know, you play there several years. There was kind of some, I think it was a pretty solid group of guys. I think LA had all the star power, and there's a reason I think that designated players are very important now in MLS. Not to say we didn't have star power, but we definitely didn't have some of the same names that were other teams had and went out and got. I'm thinking of like Giovinco here, and some of those Obafemi Martins and Clint Dempsey and stuff. So those teams did really well. Um, you know, I think for me, I look at DC as you were one of the mainstays there in the back. I still have people talk to me about how great that back group was, and I kind of felt like it was a bigger group, like a collective group. And I always, I kind of laughed because I thought your LA defense was, with Omar, y'all were just unbreakable. And I thought our Houston
Houston
defense
team, yeah, Houston, yeah.
was absolutely stacked. But it's kind of funny that people will talk to me about the DC group. And, when you look at it on paper now, as Birnbaum keeps playing, maybe that's part of it, where they look at your longevity and mine and now Bernie's. And obviously playing in front of Bill made things a lot easier on us. But what talk to me about kind of how it ended, in terms of how did you end up you end up becoming a free agent and you end up going to Vancouver. Like what was that process like? We fought really hard to get free agency, and the first time around we both ended up in DC on this reentry draft, where it's like, if we're doing reentry, like what's going on, and then you get to kind of experience free agency a little later in your career.
Free agency was it was an interesting time. Obviously, like, okay, cool, I'm free, I can kind of just pick in where I want to go. If the team has interest, I can talk to them, blah blah blah. But not a lot of teams did. And I obviously I was trying to come back to LA. I had finished in DC. I was getting married January 2018 and having no job. I'm trying to get signed to somebody. So it was a tough time, and luckily I was able to sign a 1 year with Vancouver. Love Vancouver. I mean, beautiful city. Great teammates there, and it was just a really kind of scary time when you have no job.
I tell people that, when it's when guys are fighting, in your case, I know you went to preseason with them, and people don't realize, like, you don't have insurance usually, and
Yep.
you're not sure what's going on, and that's you got a family that's in some city somewhere, and you're like, we might be moving there, we might not. You're not even in the city. You're not even in the city that you're moving to. You're just like, I'm in Florida now, or I'm in Arizona. But
it's because people got to understand, our MLS free agency money is different than if like an NFL guy's a free agent, an NBA guy's a free agent. They have a little more money in the bank,
Yeah. I always joke around and say, like, I was always getting a real job when I finished playing. The interesting thing about Vancouver was Carl Robinson. He brought you in kind of as this veteran to maybe more in, like, obviously you want to play. You're like, I'm a soccer player. I'm here to play. I'm here to compete. You did that. You played a handful of games there. You went on a little run of playing, but this really kind of was like a transition. And what I'm doing here is talking about, like, you end up transitioning into more of kind of like a player coach, a player mentor, which leads us into, getting your B license and becoming a coach. Talk to us a little bit about, what was your mentality like? You kind of got to see the end of me. And I always said, I wish I would have handled things a little better, but it's tough to go from being a starter to not, and, not have some animosity and some frustration, especially if the team's not doing well and you think you could contribute. How did you handle, being in Vancouver and kind of knowing it was coming to an end?
Yeah, of course. As a competitor, you want to play every single game, and and in my position, right back, a lot of them are going, younger as opposed to older, and they had a second year player, Jake Nowinski, great kid, strong, athletic. He's actually with the St. Louis team now, but yeah, I knew that. Going on, probably not going to be a starter, which is fine, and I found myself, talking more to the younger guys on the team, just giving them, some advice, some pointers. I talked to Jake a lot. I even talked to Alfonso Davies a lot, and I remember doing drills where I'm doing 1v1s against them, right? And there was times where he would get by me a lot, and there was times where I would kick him. I said, look, I said a lot of guys. I told him, I said, a lot of guys are gonna kick you. I was like, a lot of guys aren't gonna run with you like they're gonna hit you. I'm just trying to prepare you for what you're probably gonna get. And there's sometimes I was harder, sometimes I wasn't. So I was just trying to like I said, just teach him some things, and at the same time, build his confidence to keep going at players. I said, don't worry if you beat me every single time. Like, I want that.
Don't feel bad for me.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad because, we're doing 20 million reps and I'm dying over here. I was like, don't feel bad. So.
Well, that's cool. And then I talked a little bit about you having your B license. I'm surprised. I always talk to guys that played, and guys talk about how hard it was to get a B license. And that's always interesting to people always say, well, that's crazy. You played soccer professionally for 10 years. How could it be hard? But did you find it was a challenging curriculum to get that?
No. So I think, in my case, we kind of lucked out. So it was when I got it, it was the first year.
Like, nope, it was easy.
No, it's actually very easy. No, I mean it was hard, but I'll say it's definitely harder now than it was when I got it because they were trying this new thing where yeah, all you suckers. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Keep going.
But it was it was this year where they were trying to they sent US scouts to certain MLS teams. If there was enough interest from the players, they'd have the scouts come to you. You would do the course, with your academy, with your affiliate academy team. And I think it was, I don't know, like a couple months or something like that. That we did it. We had obviously stuff in the classroom and then we go out to the field. But I mean, it maybe took 3 months. I think now it's like it's like 6 months, something like that, possibly.
Yeah, it's like a full year course now. So
yeah,
that's just how cool Sean is for the listeners. He's just like, nah, it wasn't hard. And like, all right, cool. We'll just move on.
It is different. I mean, it's definitely it was hard.
Don't go
I'll
back.
I'll say the process was shorter, probably a little bit less, paperwork. But it was all new because now I'm seeing the game from a different, perspective, and now I'm in coaching. So
yeah, let's just say you end up there. And I think it's great. Sean is on social media, and you can see some pictures of. I know his son Egypt is now in the game, which is my kids are into it, so it's great to see your son getting the ball out and you're helping out. Let's talk a little bit, 2 more things, and then we'll wind this up. I talked about the Galaxy, kind of where they are now, and I think the fans that are there, it's pretty, around the league, it's everyone's aware of what's going on in terms of fans are rioting a little bit, and not actually rioting, but protesting. And LA was the staple of the league. It's the cream of the crop. You're still involved there for good reason because of what you did, and I know you've been involved in some of their marketing and some of the other stuff with the team, which I think is great. As a guy that kind of went through some transition years there, what do you say to the people that are, I know LAFC makes it worse probably that they're having success, but I feel like this Galaxy squad's, not a lot different than some of the teams you played for, where you make a couple of moves. They've got a great young center back where they signed a great young guy like you, and then you get Omar in there and you get some people that can really influence the game. What do you say to those fans that are, just calling for, everybody's head, really?
Yeah, I think, LA's a tough market for all sports. They expect you to win every year. They expect us to have, the best players, the best team. And, they want results now. They don't want to hear, oh, we're probably going to sign someone next. No, they want change now. And I think that's the demand. And it's not as easy as it looks. I know they're making tough decisions upstairs in the front office. And, I kind of stay out of it with, I don't, try to get into as much or, talk to the supporters about it. They have their opinion about it and I have mine. And it's tough because, the success that club has, and then to see, a stadium be so empty. And, as a player, you want the support of, your fans, and, the players want to do well too. They want to win. They want to make everyone happy. And, it's a tough period right now where it might be a year or two before, we are, back on top. And like you said, it's frustrating that, your crosstown rivals, they, the success they had, the players are bringing in, and, you sitting there thinking, well, why can't we do that? Like, we used to have that, you know what I mean? But it will come. I think it's the team's not too far off. There's some great talent there. Like you said, you tweak a few things, bring in a few more, players and pieces, and, we'll be right there again.
I'll give you guys that are listening a cool tidbit. Sean's first year in the league, he had on his roster Chris Klein and Greg Vanney, who,
right.
That just tells you how far back he goes, and that one of those guys runs the team, the other guy coaches it. So, pretty cool thing there. Look, because of what you guys did to me in the championships, I'm not rooting for you guys to turn it around, but I do think MLS, as I'm a fan of the league, I think it's a better league when the Galaxy are a powerhouse. So I'm pulling for you there. That was kind of heavy. We're going to go a little more, and then we'll wind this thing down. When I played with you in DC, I always thought you were very charitable with your time. When I was preparing for this, I looked at some of the things you did in LA. You worked with so many different groups and things that there's too many to name. You've always been very good about giving back to the community that you play in. What I want to talk about is really focus on an issue that you've been involved with your whole life, and it's finally getting the attention that it deserves on some level. Obviously, it needs to improve more, but I'm talking about racial inequality, not just in our country, but really around the world. We saw it recently with Lukaku and the reaction of all the players around the world doing the celebrations when they score in response to what many feel, and I would agree, is a racist narrative there. Talk about, you've done some things lately with different panels and different platforms. Talk about some of the issues that are important to you and what you're working on to change the narratives, kind of as not only a Black man, but as a Black father and, a Black athlete.
Yeah, just to go back to the whole Lukaku thing and players, dealing with racist issues and stuff like that. I think it's crazy how even like your own fans can root against. Obviously, that was opposing fans, but there's players who dealt with their own fans, calling them names and saying and stuff, and that's just beyond me because now it makes me think that, man, I wonder if anyone has said anything about me. I wonder if who's out there, saying stuff behind closed doors, and it's something that it's happening, too often. It's frustrating to see it, to hear about it. Even being in part of games where you hear people, use the N word, and to me, it's just unacceptable. It's not part of the game, never should be, and yeah, and I think it's something that when you hear it and you deal with and you when you hear it, it's like, man, we've been dealing with this since forever. All we want is to be able to be accepted in a sport that isn't predominantly black, right? So, in growing up, back in we'll say early '90s, if you were a black kid playing soccer, you were probably the only black kid on that team. Um, and now as the game has grown and there's more black players. To me, I love seeing more black players out there playing. I remember when Portland Timbers came into the league, and they had like 8 starters that were all black. I mean, I thought that was great. It was just great to see someone who looks like me, playing this sport, and I think we need more of that. I think that I wasn't lost my track of thought.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: what are you gonna? You have a son now that's, he's black, he's biracial. What are you? And I think that's going to become more and more common just with the way everything's going in terms of our society. And what are you going to tell him? As a guy that I know for a fact, like I just always tell people, CONCACAF was one, like there was more racist stuff said in CONCACAF games than anything I've ever been a part of. And sometimes it was like from the referee, or it wasn't even, and then you go to another country where they hate you just because of what team you're on. They don't like the US, and that was just part of the gamemanship. But when my kids watch videos of things that I did, and unfortunately it's, I joke about your red cards, but they look at red cards and they always ask me, why'd you do that? And it changes your perspective, right? I'm like, well, I shouldn't have kicked him off the ball like that. And as far as being a parent, how are you talking to your son? And he's a little young, he's probably not there yet, but how are you going to talk to him about this world we live in, and that there are going to be people that, whether it's a competitive edge or they're just saying things that they really believe in, and it's unfortunate. How are you going to kind of voice that opinion? And if that's too heavy, I apologize, but I feel like you probably
no, not at all.
You have an answer for me.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough conversations with him. It's going to be a lot of, I know he's probably going to ask questions, and I'm going to have to, be able to answer those and be able to, to guide him in the right way and tell him what's wrong and what's right. And I'm hoping that he doesn't deal with a lot of the racial slurs or stuff being said behind his back. And this actually happened. What was it? Last year we were playing. I coached a 2005 team, and one of the players had ran by, and he said the N word, and I said, hey kid, watch your mouth. And he kind of like went off, and then after the game, I pulled him to the side. I said, look, I said, you should never say that. I was like, you don't know who's listening. I was like, you don't know who's going to take it the wrong way. I was like, I could have done something to you. I was like, don't ever use that word again. And he apologized, and I think I told the head coach, and I think he might have even, I think that kid had wrote like an email or something to the league. So no, it's good that that's stuff like that's getting taken care of, and but yeah, it's the reality that we have to, that we deal with, and you hope there'll be less incidents of that.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a good job in terms of talking about those things, and I saw you on a couple different things where it was a good group of guys, and y'all were bringing conversations that need to be had, and talking about the change that you'd like to see. And I think I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic guy, and I'm hoping for change for the better. So kind of ended on a heavy subject there. I always say, you were very charitable with your time off the field when we were teammates, and you've been very charitable tonight and sharing your story with us and the people, your journey into the game and kind of to where you are now. I wish you luck as a coach and as a father. And, I think not only were you one of the best defenders in MLS, but you were definitely one of the best teammates that I ever played with. And, I just wanted to say thank you. And that is Sean Franklin, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Play by Players. Visit playbyplayerspod.com for more episodes or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This has been a production of the MLSPA. Learn more at mlsplayers.org.